I think Maria could make Brent the host because she is the
Yeah.
host right now.
It looks like, can you make me a host of my own meeting again? Thank you.
I started the recording, Brent, so no worries.
I think you are now. I tried to split.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, that's a first for me. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay. Can everybody see my PowerPoint on your screen?
Not water heaters.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Have a good one.
You too.
So secondary sources, that's what we're kicking off with today for legal research. Usually experienced attorneys, if they don't know an area of law particularly well, they will start in a secondary source to get themselves going so that they can familiarize themselves with a particular topic or specialty that they haven't done before. So to that end today, we're going to walk our way through some of the major secondary sources in a quiz type format. And then at the end of that, I'm going to go over a couple what I think are important research tips that'll save you some time. And then if there's time at the end, I'll finish with a very quick demo of Lexis and Westlaw to show you how I get to secondary sources pretty quick on the two platforms. And let me just touch on that quick. The Lexis and Westlaw trainings by the vendors have been set up. So I will make sure that your legal professors have those dates and times by the end of the day so that they can show that information with you. I know for the Lexis training, he's going to put the sessions on the Lexis homepage where you can sign up. And I think the Westlaw, I think Erica from Westlaw is going to do something similar. So be looking for that information later today. Both of those trainings are in the first weeks of February. One's the week of February 2, and then one's the week after. There's like a variety of dates and times available, both for the day sessions and the evening people. So pop quiz. Secondary sources, sort of in the context of at least sort of realistic fact patterns. Here's the first question. Can everybody read the screen? So your boss has informed you that she needs to quickly identify an applicable statute and a couple of cases for a document she's needing to file tomorrow. So how would you begin your research in this instance? Online database, look for a case that would be on point. Use the firm's library to find the annotated statute. So in the library, you might have the state statutes annotated. Google the question, what's the best answer? Is there anything that I didn't include in that list? Anybody brave enough to go? Rachel Jones is raising her hand. It says it's telling me. Rachel.
Yes, I guess anything else would be, as we learned in the videos, that you could search specifically with filters within a jurisdiction and then use keywords in certain phrases to find the statute that we need.
Okay, so like more of just using a legal research platform, just searching on keywords and then seeing what stuff comes out. And then you can filter from there. Okay, that's good. Any other thoughts on this? So annotated, basically the answer to the first question there is anything. Any of those answers are fine. The premise of the answer is that legal research is not a lineal thing. You can start and go in different directions to arrive at the right answer or the most persuasive answer. So an annotated statute might get you the answer. So if you go to the index of your annotated statute and find a particular law that's on point, the annotations at the end of a statute section will have little summaries of cases with their citations to find the opinion. So within a statute, you can locate cases that apply the statute. So that's a good starting point. Secondary source. Hence, we're talking secondary sources. Secondary sources is a good starting point, right? So if you pull West Pennsylvania practice, family law and practice off the shelf of your firm library because they handle a lot of family law questions in the index or on the online version, you would search it using keywords and such. You might find the section dealing with, if you're dealing with child custody, child modification, find the section in the book that deals with child custody. And then in the footnotes, your publication will maybe link you to statute or link you to case opinions. And then also statute. So here's custody proceedings. Here are some opinions and there's citations to find them online. And then also there's some citations here to Pennsylvania consolidated statutes. So cases and statutes all within the secondary source. So you're using the secondary source to familiarize yourself generally about a topic, and then that leads you to cases and statutes.
Like right before the election started.
So question number 2, you're researching a Pennsylvania PA family law issue and you're unfamiliar with this area of law. Of the following secondary sources, which one would you think would be the most helpful in starting your research? And your reading for today in Gilbert's touched on, I think, most of these. An ALR, American Law Report, General Treatise on Family Law, the Pennsylvania Law Encyclopedia, Legal Encyclopedia, CJS, Corpus Juris Secundum. Are you going to do a Google search to start? Is there anything wrong with starting in Google? Trevor's raised his hand. Yes, sir.
So I believe 7, I mean, this is my opinion. I would probably use 7 just because you get a professional look at how like attorneys in that specific field list everything out, and you get a nice mixture of like case law and, obviously the statutes.
Good answer. Good answer. That's probably the way I would, well, honestly, I'd start in Google, but I'm a terrible librarian. There's nothing wrong with Google. Google's like the Uber index of all things. But you have to be able to critically evaluate your search results in Google to know what you're looking at is good, reputable, etc. So a Pennsylvania treatise on family law, probably probably a good place to start, either in your library at your firm or online, Lexis or Westlaw. Go into secondary sources, search on Pennsylvania family law, see what secondary sources come up and go from there. Because a publication on that topic, you'd have a pretty good idea that it is a reputable author who's practiced in that field and knows what he or she's talking about. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that question? So if I was in the law library and I needed to find information on Pennsylvania family law, I might start in the library catalog to see what we have available. So from the library home screen here, in the catalog search box, I type in Pennsylvania family law. And actually one of the first hits when you type Pennsylvania family law would be this West Pennsylvania Practice Pennsylvania family law. So once COVID is passed, you'd be in the library, you could go to the shelf and find West PA Practice, KFP 80 is the call number. You'd go there and read what you wanted to find out. You'll also notice when you go to the catalog and you pull up West Pennsylvania Practice Family Law, there's a second record to it which says that it's available electronically on Westlaw. So from our library catalog, you would also know that, hey, this book is also available electronically and you would have access to it either through your Lexis or your Westlaw subscription. Now, I might start there with a Google search, family law, child custody, something like that. Find a law firm's website that talks about it generally. And if they give me citations to a case and to the Pennsylvania statute, I would for sure write down those citations, take those citations to Lexis and Westlaw and pull up the primary sources. And that's another way of jump-starting my research from Google, getting into the legal platform, the legal research platform. So there's nothing wrong with Google as long as you know what you're looking at. Question number 3. If you are writing a paper on how many states allowed for grandparent visitation in regard to child custody issues, what would likely to be your best source? So your law professor you're working with, or your firm attorney is writing a law review article on grandparent visitation across the states. If they're looking to find all of the different states that have a statute or law dealing with grandparent visitation, what would be your best initial step in doing that research, maybe? Not even a guess? We're all friends here, so there's not a right or wrong answer. Paul.
I would say number 3, because I think it's a more general overview of the law.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What did you?
I said number 3.
Number
think it's a
3,
more-
legal encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Maybe, but doubtful. You're not going to get multiple jurisdictions in that answer. Daryl Joyner.
I would go with number 1, a law review article.
Law review article. Okay, that's a good thought, to see if anybody has talked about it and compared the different jurisdictions and how they handle grandparent visitation. You go into Lexis or Westlaw, click secondary sources, find the database that's specific to law reviews, and then run your search grandparent visitation and see what comes up. That's a good thought. I've got two others raising their hands. Any other comments on that? The law review is a good answer. My best answer for that question is an ALR annotation, ALR, American Law Reports. Because the ALRs are written by lawyers and judges that talk about a very narrow and specific topic of law in quite depth, and they cover all of the jurisdictions that have such a thing going on. So ALR is available in both Lexis and Westlaw. So if you log into Lexis or Westlaw and type ALR, you would find the ALR database. You could run your search, grandparent visitations. Probably one of your first hits would be this ALR article talking about grandparent visitation rights where children's parents are living. So very specific. Visitation of grandparents when the parents are still alive. And then at the beginning of the article, they'll have a summary. And then you go to the jurisdictional table that's a little ways later, and you'll see every state listed. And there's your Pennsylvania. Here's your citation to the Pennsylvania Consolidated Statutes. So if you're doing like a survey of all laws, you would have all 50 states, grandparent visitations, and their citations there. So ALR is one of my favorite resources. Question 4. Your supervising attorney remembers reading a recent law review article this summer about the American Invents Act of 2011. And I guess this article argued that the act really is not gonna reduce the prevalence of dubious patents. So they were trying to modify the patent process with this new American Invents Act. And it argued that it's not going to solve the problem of dubious and superficial patents. She can't remember anything else. It's like saying, well, I found a red book in the library at one point. So she's hoping you can do some quick research and locate the article. She doesn't know the title or anything. What resource would you consult to help you locate the article? Google, West, Hein, Lexis, maybe a periodical index of some sort. Or would you use the library catalog first off? Any thoughts on that? You're looking for a law review article. Michael Cohn. Yes, sir.
To start, I'd probably go to Google, try to learn something about the act myself and pick out the keywords and then run a more detailed search in maybe like a Westlaw or the Lexis database.
Okay. Somebody else raised their hand. Who was it? Any other thoughts on finding a law review article? I'll tell you the periodical index is probably if you know you want to look for law review articles, well, Lexis or Westlaw, go into Lexis and Westlaw, go secondary sources, find the database in Lexis or Westlaw that's specific to law reviews and do your search there. So you narrow your Lexis and Westlaw search down from the jump. On our library database page, we have the index to legal periodicals or Legal Track. Those would also be good sources. Or start with you can start in the library catalog. On these sorts of things, I always start in the catalog, because you have to understand that our library catalog, not only does it catalog the physical books we have in the library, but it catalogs all of the stuff, the minutia that we have access to electronically on Lexis or Westlaw or Hein Online. Hein Online is a database that's specific to PDF versions of almost every single law review article under the sun. So Hein Online is going to be a database you're going to become familiar with. So in the library catalog, if I searched on dubious patents, one of my first hits is going to be this Boston College Law Review entitled Dubious Patent Reform. And it's dated 2011, 2012, which is likely the one she was looking for. So right within the library catalog search results is a link to Hein Online, and that article will open right up from the library catalog. So a lot of times, if you're looking for secondary sources, law review articles, other scholarly type things, searching from the library catalog is a good place to start. Because not only does it catalog books, but it's going to catalog actual articles that are available on one of the many databases we have available. A Google search in this case worked too. I Googled dubious patent reforms. One of the first hits was the Boston College Law Review. It pulls from the University of Michigan Scholarly Repository. So you can download it from Google as well. So I can use the Google Uber index to find maybe what I'm looking for. I'm not necessarily going to know what all of these hits are, but hey, Boston College takes me to Boston College. It's their actual law review. So I've got a pretty good idea that's an authoritative resource. Question 5. You need to know if the Commonwealth Law Library has a print copy of the January 2015 issue of the Harvard Law Review. How can you find this out? More broadly, what's a good way to find what law review articles, what law review publications that you have available to you using our library resources? Summer.
I would say first check the Commonwealth Law Library catalog, and if that doesn't work, ask the information desk.
Check the catalog, and if you can't find it, ask the information desk or send me an email. That's always a good route too, because I usually can find things pretty good. So yeah, catalog's a good first start. I also want to familiarize you with this full text finder. So from the Law Library resource page, there's a link called Full Text Finder. So from the library, you click on resources. At the top of that resource page is this Full Text Finder link. If I type in Harvard Law Review, it comes back with a list of particular titles, Harvard Law Review shows, and then it gives me all the different databases that the Harvard Law Review is accessible in. So that's Full Text Finder. Make sure you write that down in your notes as a possible solution to some of your problems. If you're looking for Harvard Law Review, if you're looking for a New York Times article, if you're looking for a Pennsylvania Bar Association publication, Full Text Finder, run a search on your title and see if any of the databases have it. Okay, here's my little video here. Was everyone able to hear that? The audio didn't come through. Okay, well, this is a scene from Clone Wars, I think. It was cut. So the Jedi comes to the library and he asks the Jedi librarian, how cool is it that there was a Jedi librarian? Asked the Jedi librarian, I can't find this planet on the maps. It's in this old book I found, but I can't find this. I can't find the planet on the maps. Where is it? Help me. And the Jedi librarian, she's pretty pompous. She says, well, if it's not in the library, it doesn't exist. And she was so wrong. She was all hung up on her hubris. So are all useful secondary sources found on Lexis or Westlaw? This is probably the most important question I'm throwing at you today. Is everything on Lexis and Westlaw? Yes or no? Alexis?
No.
No. Everybody else agree? That's right. Of course not, right? Because we've got books in the library. There's other subscription databases, right? I've mentioned Hein Online for your law review articles. If you're looking for statutes and for cases and for regulations and you don't have access to Lexis or Westlaw, you might use a government website. All of this stuff is available on government websites often. Education websites, other libraries, other law schools, they create content that has information and links. So if you're running a search on Google, one of my tricks is to do an advanced Google search and limit my search to .edu, so education websites, and then also search on LibGuides to see if a library or somebody else has created a LibGuide on a topic they're familiar with. Public libraries, so it's Lexis and Westlaw, not everything. If you're out in practice or you need to find things, get your public library cards, see what databases they have, what information they have. And then also, of course, take advantage of your firm library. Many things are not online. I mean, most are, but many aren't. The main example in Pennsylvania is the Pennsylvania PBI, the Bar Institute publications. The yellow books you see in the library, they're not available electronically. So if you want to take advantage of the content in the Pennsylvania PBIs, you're going to be hitting the library because they're not digitized and available electronically. Amjur second would be what type of authority? Primary, secondary, binding, persuasive. None of these. And your second, American jurisprudence. Level of authority. Anybody know? Kara,
Secondary persuasive.
secondary persuasive. Beautiful. Why? What makes it a secondary source?
Sorry, I muted myself. It's secondary because it's not a statute, it's not case law, it's not anything that's in any way binding whatsoever or on the first level. It's a secondary level.
Exactly. It's not primary means the law. I mean, that issues from the governing body. So an actual opinion, an actual statute, a regulation, those are primary resources. A secondary source is anything else, something that describes the law, explains the law. Would you cite to American jurisprudence in your brief, do you think? No, that's right, probably not, because in your briefs or your memoranda, your research is attempting to accumulate in primary authority that is going to sway the judge or jury. Question 8, state statutes, of course, I've already given this answers. So statutes are primary authority because that's the actual law that's passed by Congress or passed by the legislature, the governing body. So a statute, of course, you're going to cite to it. So primary authority, authority that issues directly from the lawmaking body. The US Constitution, the Federal Code, Pennsylvania Consolidated Statutes. Question 9, sort of related. Is a Maryland opinion mandatory or persuasive if you're practicing and filing a case in Pennsylvania? You found a Maryland Supreme Court case on point. Would you cite to it in PA? Oh boy. Let's see. Who raised their hand? I see somebody raise their hand, but I don't see who. Kylie, I see your hands up.
If you're Pennsylvania state, even if it's Pennsylvania Supreme State, it would be persuasive.
Persuasive. Correct. Because Pennsylvania state courts have no requirement to follow another state's court system. Now, kind of like a Hail Mary, if an area of law hasn't been decided or settled in your jurisdiction, but a neighboring state has ruled on it, I mean, you might throw it into your brief or whatever as persuasive authority, but you would never expect or think that the Pennsylvania court would have to follow that Maryland opinion. So secondary authority, anything that does not issue directly from a lawmaking body. So we're using secondary authorities, secondary sources to point our way to primary, to statute, to cases that interpret the statute, etc. So, well, again, I'm a terrible teacher because I answer the question before I even give it. So why use a secondary resource in your legal research? Secondary resource, that's kind of a tongue twister. To help you find the law. That's what you're after, right? Finding the law that's going to determine your situation. Provide basic understanding of an unknown area of law. So if you're opening up your practice and somebody comes in wanting a child custody modification and you've never handled it before, you're going to find a book or something on Pennsylvania child custody and get the lay of the land to know what the main statutes are, the citations to the statutes. So you can go to your statutes and then use the annotated statutes to find cases, to find reference to primary authority. So you're looking for footnotes, you're looking for citations in the text that lead you to primary sources. And probably most important to people like me who aren't especially smart, oftentimes the secondary sources explain the law in less complex language that's more easy to understand. Often the legalese in opinions is sort of confusing. So if you can find a practice aid that's going to explain it in a little more layman's terms that's easier to digest, that's better for you to start your research so you understand the concepts better initially, and then you can get more into the weeds as you go. So far, we've covered state practice aids. So West Pennsylvania Practice Family. Treatises. Treatise is just a fancy name for book. I've showed you some screenshots of how using the library catalog is going to lead you to both resources that are available on Lexis and Westlaw and to other databases. I've showed you an example of my favorite resource, the American Law Reports, because it covers a very narrow, specific area of law in detail. I've showed a Google search, especially for law review articles. So when you're doing your Google search, be critical about your search results and knowing what you're looking for. If you're clicking on links that go to Hein Online or go to another law school or something, so just be aware of what you're clicking on in Google. I've mentioned full text finder. So if you're wanting to know if you're wanting to know if the library has access to a particular journal or something along those lines, under from the library resource list, use the full text finder to see what's all available to you. These last two are way into the weeds. They're not as often used in secondary, but they were mentioned in your text. What are restatements of the law? Did anybody pick up on that in the reading? Restatements of the law. So if you see reference to restatements of the law, it's basically codification of common law concepts. Highly persuasive in the courts because groups of lawyers and judges get together attempting to codify common law concepts, but they're only secondary unless they've been adopted by the court. So when you're reading opinions, you'll from time to time see that the state Supreme Court has adopted this restatement of the law of torts or of property for Pennsylvania. So restatement of the law is no longer just a simple secondary source. It's extremely persuasive in Pennsylvania. And it's actually almost primary law because the court has adopted that rule. And likewise, question 12, what are uniform laws? I don't remember if the reading touched on that. The uniform laws annotated. They're proposed statutes that are frequently adopted by the state legislature. So a bunch of smart people get together every year and they discuss how laws should be codified across the states to promote uniformity in the jurisdictions as it applies to common situation. And common examples are the Uniform Commercial Code. So each state has their own commercial code that's very similar to one another. The Model Penal Code, so they handle their sentencing and their criminal stuff similarly across the states. So if you see reference to the uniform laws annotated, that's what that's talking about. They're secondary sources until adopted by the state. So when the state adopts the UCC, they'll codify that language into their statute and it becomes primary. So that's my rundown of the main secondary sources and why you might use them. Are there any questions about that just in general that you might have in your mind? So my pro tips. Pro tip number 1, use a 50-state survey to see if there's a statute on point. So 50-state surveys, both Lexis and Westlaw have them in their platform. So 50-state survey. So if you're looking for family law, child custody, or a good one now is COVID-19 laws. Go into Lexis and Westlaw, click secondary sources, click 50-state survey, and then COVID-19, and it'll bring you out a chart that has all states that have codified something dealing with COVID-19, gathering restrictions and the like. Or other examples, if a state has a lemon law, or if you're looking for your state's duty to disclose child abuse by doctors, go in there, search the 50-state surveys, and it'll give you all of the different citations for the variety of states. So keep that in the back of your tool shed, 50-state surveys. And then again, harping on what I've already covered, pro tip number 2, to see if something's available online, use your catalog, use the full text finder. So make sure you remember all of that. So real quick, I'm not going to have time for Lexis, but Law School, Westlaw, log in. Go into, so the Twin, Westlaw Edge. Now, when I start my research, I may start in secondary sources first, or I might narrow by jurisdictions. I might go state materials first, so I click over on state, go to Pennsylvania, if that's my jurisdiction. From there, I can run my search and then filter my results. Or I might start in secondary sources. If I know what I'm looking for, I would click on a particular title, like the West Pennsylvania Practice Series, or if not, I might just start just generally. Grandparent visitation. And then remember, when your screen opens up, it defaults to cases. So it's pulling the words grandparent or visitation in opinions. If I'm looking for secondary sources, I would then filter to secondary sources. American Jurisprudence of Facts, Standard Pennsylvania Practice, Rights upon Divorce or Separation. So you get the idea. So here's my West Pennsylvania Practice Series, section on grandparents. Grandparents occupy a favored position among third party and custody disputes. Here's my, make sure you take notice, table of contents so you can see how that publication is laid out. Your footnotes have citations to the primary law, so click on that. That leads me to the Pennsylvania Consolidated Statutes, standing for form of physical custody. So it looks like a grandparent has standing to challenge or to petition for custody. So you can sort of get the idea of how I filter by secondary first, get an overlay, get an overview of child custody, and then find my primary sources from there. That wasn't the most concise search. Here's my pro tip number 3. State material, PA. I went grandparent visitation, so it's searching grandparent or visitation anywhere. If I go grandparent, same sentence, /s, custody. So that's grandparent within the same sentence of custody. So now you can see my search results are a little closer together because it's looking for grandparent within the same sentence of custody instead of just grandparent anywhere in the document and custody anywhere in the document. So pro tip 3, /s is same sentence, /p is same paragraph. And if you really want to tighten it up, / and a number. So grandparent /3 of custody is grandparent within 3 words of the word custody. I don't get too deep into Boolean searches, but those are the biggies: /s, /paragraph, and /number. So evidence that grandparent abduced during custody. So grandparents within 3 words of custody. Okay. And that looks like that's all I have time for today, guys. So unless there's any questions, I will see you next Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.